the ghost of the lighthouse keeper. On the rugged coast of Maine, perched on a rocky bluff, stood the historic Cape Neddick Lighthouse, known affectionately as Nubble Light. Built in 1879, it served as a beacon for sailors navigating the treacherous waters. But as with many lighthouses, its history was steeped in tragedy and ghostly tales. In the early 1900s, the lighthouse keeper, a man named George, dedicated his life to ensuring the light never faltered. He was a solitary figure, often seen wandering the cliffs, meticulously tending to the light and keeping watch over the sea. After several years, George's wife fell ill and tragically passed away, leaving him heartbroken and alone. The isolation of the lighthouse, combined with his grief, began to take a toll on his mental state. One stormy night, as the winds howled and rain lashed against the lighthouse, George lost control of the light. In a panic, he rushed to fix it, but the storm proved too fierce. The very next day, a ship, unable to see the beacon, crashed against the rocks, claiming the lives of all aboard. Devastated by the loss of life and feeling responsible, George succumbed to despair. It is said that he walked to the edge of the cliff and vanished into the stormy sea. Years passed, and the lighthouse continued to operate, but stories of George's restless spirit began to circulate among the townsfolk. Visitors reported seeing a figure on the cliffs, sometimes standing by the light, staring out to sea. Others claimed to hear the faint sound of a man's voice carried on the wind, calling for help. In the summer of 2001, a group of paranormal investigators decided to explore Nubble Light. Equipped with cameras, EVP recorders, and infrared thermometers, they hoped to capture evidence of the supernatural. As night fell, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. They set up in the old keeper's house, now a small museum, and began their session. "Is there anyone here with us?" one investigator asked, her voice echoing in the silence. The room fell still, and a chill swept through, causing the temperature to drop suddenly. They reviewed their recordings later that night, and were shocked to hear a soft, sorrowful voice whisper, "I'm sorry." Encouraged, they moved outside, where they felt drawn to the cliffs. As they stood there, the wind picked up, and they noticed a shadowy figure standing at the edge, staring out at the turbulent sea. They aimed their cameras, but the figure vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the sound of crashing waves. Later, one of the team members, a woman named Lisa, felt a strange sensation, a cold hand grasping her shoulder. She turned, but no one was there. Heart racing, she felt compelled to speak. "George, if that's you, we're here to listen." In that moment, the wind howled, and a sense of overwhelming sadness enveloped her. They continued to record, and again they captured a voice, clearer this time, filled with anguish. "I cannot leave." The investigators wrapped up their session, deeply affected by the experience. They left with a new understanding of the lighthouse keeper's sorrow and the tragedy that had forever bound him to the cliffs. To this day, visitors to Nubble Light often report strange occurrences, flickering lights, cold drafts, and the sensation of being watched. Some even claim to see George's figure lingering near the cliffs, still watching over the sea, a tragic guardian forever bound to the place he once called home. The haunting of the old asylum. In the outskirts of a small town, an abandoned asylum loomed, its crumbling facade a grim reminder of a dark past. The Eldridge State Asylum had been operational for over a century before it was shut down in the late 1980s, notorious for its inhumane treatment of patients. Stories of cruelty, neglect, and unexplainable occurrences surrounded the place, making it a magnet for thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. In 2010, a group of college students decided to explore the asylum for a school project on urban legends. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they entered the decaying building, their laughter echoing through the empty halls. The air was thick with dust, and the musty smell of decay clung to everything. As they ventured deeper, they stumbled upon old medical records scattered across the floor, detailing horrific treatments, lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and solitary confinement. As night fell, the atmosphere grew tense. They set up their equipment in what had once been a common room, surrounded by rusting chairs and peeling paint. The group decided to conduct an EVP, electronic voice phenomena, session, hoping to capture the voices of the lost souls who had once inhabited the asylum. "Is anyone here with us?" one student called out, her voice trembling slightly. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, a faint whisper echoed back, barely audible, sending chills down their spines. They replayed the recording, and the words sent a shiver through the group. "Get out." Ignoring the warning, they pressed on, moving into the basement where the most notorious treatments had taken place. The dim light from their flashlights flickered ominously as they descended the stairs. The air grew colder, and an oppressive feeling settled in, like an unseen weight pressing down on them. Suddenly, one of the girls, Sarah, felt a sharp pain in her arm. She looked down to see deep scratches appearing, as if something invisible had clawed at her. Panic erupted among the group. They rushed back upstairs, but the door slammed shut behind them, trapping them in the darkness. Frantic, they pounded on the door, shouting for help, but their voices echoed back, swallowed by the oppressive silence. In the chaos, one of the boys, Mark, noticed a shadow moving in the corner of the room. It was a figure, pale and gaunt, standing just outside the reach of their flashlights. Its eyes glowed with a haunting intensity. Screaming, they pushed against the door, finally managing to force it open. They sprinted into the hallway, desperate to escape. As they ran, they could hear whispers wrapping around them, taunting them, urging them to turn back. "Stay with us, forever." They burst out of the asylum into the cool night air, gasping for breath. The group vowed never to return, but the experience haunted them. Sarah's scratches didn't heal properly, leaving scars that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Months later, Sarah began experiencing vivid nightmares, visions of the asylum and its tortured inhabitants calling to her. She became increasingly withdrawn, her friends worried about her fading spirit. Then one night, in a moment of desperation, she returned to the asylum alone, driven by an insatiable curiosity. Her friends never saw her again. The town mourned, but the asylum remained, standing sentinel over its dark secrets, waiting for the next curious soul to wander in and join the whispers of the damned.